Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today we are going to build upon last week's session where we discussed the idea of drawing courageously, right? And we had a full lengthy conversation about that we want to pick up today, and then hopefully show you, visually, like, what does that look like, and how do you get to that, right? I do have to say, I was talking to Swenley and Mrityunjay before we came on here live, that last week's video, I think, prompted probably more conversations than any other that we've done in the last 2 years with students that I mentor during the week. So to me, that shows me that we're really onto something. It's a pretty hot subject, and it seems like people are really intrigued and interested about what we're discussing. So, so like I said, we thought, let's continue this and dig into it a little bit more. It's kind of a challenge to discuss. It's not like we're here discussing measuring or anatomy or something like that, right? It feels a little touchy-feely, the conversation itself. So like I said, we're going to dig into it a little bit further today. My apologies if I sneeze or whatever. I have a cold, so just trying to get through that. So we're going to talk about courage today. Ironically, I happen to be wearing this shirt today, so I want to give a shout out, which I never do, but I want to give a shout out to my daughter, Marin, talking about courage. So she just got accepted to LMU, which is Loyola Marymount College in California near LA, for theater, acting, and she's going to be minoring in film as well. Two things that she's super passionate about. And any of you who've tried acting before, you know that talk about courage, I would say, in fields and careers, probably even more so than drawing, because here we are today talking about the courage of being able to draw, but imagine if the art is you, right? Your own physical body, and that you're the instrument and everybody's watching you try to create the art, right? And as some of you know, I've gone through a lot of acting classes myself, so I know what that's like, and it's some people, again, for some people, not a problem, right? No big deal. They get up there and they just do it. For me, it was a real challenge. I'm super analytical, and I analyzed for months. Until I just got so frustrated with myself that I decided to trust the situation and be courageous and go through the fear of embarrassment, right? And let it happen. And then I actually started to feel what acting was like. So like I said, I just want to give my daughter a shout out. I know it was challenging, but she did it. So it's awesome. So, so let's talk today about courageous drawing. I felt like last week, like I said, I had many conversations. Oh, and before we go on, let's say hello to our other guys, of course. How's it going, Mrityunjay?
Doing good, Mike. How about you?
Good. Yeah, I'm very excited to continue this talk, and I'm happy Swenley's here to join us today on the second round.
Yeah, that's an exciting subject that, like you said, a lot of students talked about, and something that we really see missing in a lot of students' work in force drawing. So hopefully this will inspire them and help spark that sense of awe and amazement in drawing the human figure.
Yeah, one of the things that's come up this week, and I don't even know if I have the answer, but I want to bring up the conversation, is force drawing, specifically force drawing, happens to be an awesome drawing approach for what we're talking about, this idea of drawing with passion and awe, because we are excited by these things that we see in the model, and drawing, and seeing force in the human figure is an exciting thing. And it's a powerful thing, it's an energy, right? We're talking about force, it's an energy. So we're drawing energetically ourselves in order to get that energy. Like Glenn Keane came up in many of my conversations over this past week. He's probably one other person today that I can point to and go, he's doing exactly what we're talking about, right? You can go today after we're done with our live session and go look up Glenn Keane, talking about Pocahontas, talking about animation. He's done a lot of talks at CalArts and at Disney when he was working there, about his approach, and just listen to his language, listen to what he says as to how he approaches drawing, and feeling things out comes up a lot. And his drawings are kind of rough and crude, and yet he's Glenn Keane, right? Like, we know the guy's a master draftsman, yet he's egoless enough to just try to sketch and draw to get an idea across, right? To get to a place where you're looking at, you're basically having a conversation with your drawing the whole time you're working, because you're getting feedback, right? The feedback is the drawing. You're thinking, you're like, oh my God, that's so awesome. You're feeling, hopefully, right? You're getting this idea, you're drawing it, and you're working with this sense of passion to see if you can make that idea show up, right? It's like you are in the act of creating, right? Like, that's amazing, right? Think about that. That is amazing. The act of being someone who creates is an amazing act. It doesn't matter if you're a singer, a musician, or in our case, artists or drawers, right? You are in the act of creation. And we want that act to be passionate. And I think it's passion that drives the courage I was talking about, or Mrityunjay and I were talking about last week, right? It's having that passion that helps the courage get built up strong enough to push through the fear of typically embarrassment. I would say embarrassment as human beings is probably it's probably one of the things that doesn't work in our favor maybe as often as we think it does. It's there as a trigger to protect us, right? It's there to protect you. But more often than not, it's not good. It's like more, especially in a creative endeavor. In creative endeavor, I don't know how much embarrassment's really there to help you, right? You're probably better off trying to get through the embarrassment, not worrying about your ego, which ironically is what it is. I know most people say, but I'm not egotistical. Well, if you're embarrassed and you're worried about your drawing, guess what? That means that's you protecting your ego, right? So you want to try to get that out of the way and be humble enough, right? Have enough humility to go, you know what, everybody else had to start somewhere, and so do I. The drawing's not going to be amazing. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to fall on my face. So did everybody else, right? Doesn't matter if it's Glenn Keane or Michelangelo, right? Everybody starts somewhere, and you're going to fail. You're going to fall on your face, and that's awesome, right? Because that's how you learn, right? You learn by going through that process of drawing passionately and falling on your face, recognizing by the way that you fall on your face, learning, and then doing it again. One of my students this week said, yeah, well, you didn't mention the idea that if you keep falling on your face over and over again without the education knowing what's right, that's not good either. And I was like, well, we actually did kind of touch upon that. That was that chart, right? We had this kind of roller coaster chart. And I said, you want to draw with the passion. And when you come out of that, you want to have the ability to analyze. Now, sometimes you don't know, if you don't have the skills to know what's right or wrong, it's true. You could draw passionately and just keep making the same mistakes. And not to make this a selling point, but that's what mentorship's about. That's why we go to school. It's why we have teachers. We have people that have gone through this before us to help us see what's right and what's wrong, right? It's like, hey, you're doing this really well. When you go out there into the field or in the ring, whatever metaphor you want to use, and you go and draw with passion, when you come back with that work, we can tell you, that was awesome. You did this really, really well. This thing over here, this is where you need to work, right? You need more time and effort and energy, more skill, more practice here. Let's go work on this. Okay, let's throw you back in the ring, right? Draw with some passion and excitement and courage, and then come back and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And that chart, as we talked about last week, right, it's going up and down and up and down. And that up and down will decrease until you are in a place where you are drawing with that sense of vigor, of passion, and you know how to draw. You have all the skills to do it. And that's like a Glenn Keane, right? That's what I'm getting at. Like, that's where we want to get to. What I'm pitching here is something like a Glenn Keane process. You have the skill to do what you need to do, and you are darn curious and excited and passionate about what you are doing. Now, how do you get there? I think it's about digging into your subject. We teach forest drawing, right? So the thing to be passionate about is we're trying to show you, here are things that you can build excitement around, right? And forest is one of them. Forest is an excellent one, right? Because it's energy. Think about Glenn. Glenn is animating, right? Such an excellent artistic endeavor to present passion, right? Because it's acting. He's basically acting with a pencil. So he's having to draw ideas and get into the passion and personalities of the characters while he's drawing, right? You're trying to do that with a pencil. What a challenge that is, right? So force, like I said, is a great vehicle for this. So I was going to bring this up earlier, to bring this all the way around full circle. It's like, does this work for everything? You know, could I draw a composition or a landscape with passion? You know, could I draw a car with passion? I think so. I think when I draw a composition, I usually am a little more technical because I like the sort of designing mental aspect of it. But I can also sit there here. Let's say I'll try to do one really fast actually here. Let's say I said, you know, I have this composition I want to draw, and and maybe it's like I'm going to go for a story, right? Basically. So imagine that I was doing that and I had a story that I was after, and I'm passionate about that story, right? So I'm like, you know, I don't know, there's a lone, you know, like there's a lone individual here, and this guy's walking down this like this dark road by himself at night, and here somewhere is this like really ominous castle, right? So I'm scribbling, I'm drawing with the excitement of I just want to get this idea down, right? And maybe there's lots of skulls on the road. Maybe there's like pikes with skulls on them and stuff, right? Like going along the road. And for scale, I'm going to put some over here that are really small so we get a sense of depth. Maybe there's like a huge one here, right in the foreground in our face, right? Just to add the creep value to this whole thing, right? You can see I'm drawing fast and crude because I'm not worried about I'm drawing technically enough to tell the story, but not over technical. Like I'm worried about the specific perspective. I'm not worried about value. I'm not measuring really at all. I'm just trying to get ideas down, right? So you can see you could do this like this as well, right? It's like I just want to get the thoughts down. I love using clouds for composition. So I might have some clouds like sweeping in here and pointing towards this castle. Maybe there's like the door is right here, right? So you can see I can kind of move through this with some excitement and vigor, right? And kind of scribble my way around to get an idea, right? And by the way, I don't think passion is very neat. Just to be clear, I don't think it's very neat. I think it's more aggressive. It's faster. You're trying to get ideas down or emotions down, and they're a little more sloppy. You know, emotions are not neat either, right? So, you know, you get better at them with practice. You learn how to be more emotional and so on with time too. But so here's like a quick doodle, right? And here's our guy. Let's make him a silhouette just so we can see him better. So I just sketched that out and I was like, wow, this is really fun. I want to get over here. I want to get this castle, this looming castle, this guy on this road. He's going to make his way up to this castle. There's skulls on pikes and all this other stuff, right? So it's a scary place. And I can crank it out, you know, pretty quickly. So same thing with the figure. You know, I could draw a car and maybe say, you know, I'm excited about this car, right? So that kind of leads me to the beginning of today's conversation before we really start drawing figures, let's say with courage, is one of the things that I think I learned over this past week and talking to the students so much is that I think what helps with the passion piece is to have some sense of an idea. I think it's kind of hard to be passionate. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't think anything's impossible, but I don't think it's easy to start with zero and go, I'm passionate, right? I'm passionate about nothing, right? I'm just gonna doodle. Now, some artists do that. I can think of some without naming names in my head right now. I could think of artists who I think are amazing draftsmen that'll start like this and just kind of doodle around. I'm not passionate about this, by the way. I'm just kind of doodling and hoping I find something, right? I might just sit here and keep doing this until I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That looks like a nose to me. Oh, cool. Let me start drawing a face in here, right? To me, this is very different. This is almost more of like a meditative process. It doesn't mean it's a better or worse way of drawing. It's different. It's not what I'm talking about today, right? I'm talking about this excitement, this level of, again, passion or drama and courage that I want you to feel when you're drawing. For me, that really starts with this, an idea. Now that idea, to break this down and what I've been thinking about this week, if it's reference, then what happens for me is I have a very quick response, right? I have a reaction. And that's from years of training, admittedly. If you're new, right, like you're learning force from us, we're trying to teach you this response. You may not have the frame of reference yet to know how to get excited about drawing with force, right? Because you don't know what it looks like yet. You're trying to find it, right? So it's our job, the three of us, to help you see this and have that sort of gut response to like, wow, that's awesome, right? Remember awe, right? We want to have a sense of awe for, at least in the least, the force of the model, right? The forces of the pose. And then I can react to that. And then I start drawing, right? I'm like, oh my God, that's so awesome, right? I got to get this force pushing into the shoulder and down to the leg, and look at how far apart the legs are, and look at the stress in the back, right? So that leads to this reaction is then me finally having ideas, right? That gets me to where I started here. So the other way is imagination, right? Imagination. So one of my students, we were talking about this. He's drawing his own comic book right now. He's like, well, you know, like, so what? Let's say I was supposed to do a cover for like a Supergirl comic, and big deal, right? Big deal. It's really up to you to use your imagination, right? To come up with, I think what happens here is you really need to come up with enough sort of like details, enough information. It could be anything. I'll give you an example, right? So I had to do a cover for Supergirl. I want to think about like, how fast is she flying? Are we talking about 20 miles an hour? Or is she going 150 miles an hour? That's exciting to me. I'm like, damn, I'm going to have her flying at 150 miles an hour. How high up is she? You know, so she's going 150. How high up is she? I'm going to say she's at about 13,000 feet, right? 13,000 feet. Now you've probably seen this video of me skydiving, so I know what 10 to 15 feels like, right? It's kind of high. So she's at 13K feet, right? She's off the ground, 13,000 feet, 150 miles an hour. I'm going to say that it's a blue sky day, right? So it's got blue skies, but it's got those really big puffy clouds, which I happen to know are called cumulus. Don't ask me why. Cumulus clouds, all right? So I'm starting to get an image. What about her? Maybe she's upset. I'm going to say she's upset. Instead of normal superhero, she's excited and happy. Maybe she's crying. Right? She's crying. She's flying at 150 miles an hour. She's 13,000 feet off the ground. What is she flying over? That's kind of interesting. What is she flying over? And she's upset. I don't know. I mean, I could push the drama here. Maybe there's cumulus clouds, but maybe I was just thinking to go with the upset part. Maybe there's like thunderstorms in the distance, right? Kind of adds this like ambiance to the whole thing. Maybe she's flying over the ocean onto land, right? So over ocean. You see what's starting to happen. I don't know if it's happening to you, but it's happening to me, right? What I start thinking is, damn, I want to draw this, right? I'm getting myself to a place of excitement, right? And passion. And that pushes me totally out of any kind of fear. And I'm in courage space because I'm just so damn excited. I'm like, wow, okay, I got enough facts here to inspire me to want to draw this, right? To be excited by it. So when I do it, it does not mean now all of a sudden draw her dispassionately or unpassionately, right? I don't want to sit and now go, okay, Supergirl, here's my cover. Let me draw her. All right, let me draw this. Let's see, 13,000 square feet. How little should this building be down here? Let me look up cumulus clouds really quick. See what that looks like. Let me see. I'm going to have to draw a box here for the perspective of her body. Let me break that perspective down. Here's her waist. Here's her chest, her knees, right? God, I just went through all this exciting work. I just went through all this and then game over. I just killed it. It's okay if you don't know this stuff. Just sketch. You know, it's like, wow, I want her flying, right? It's okay if the drawing sucks at the beginning. I just want to get this attitude of her flying, right? Maybe I see that I want her like coming from the distance and flying in here. I said the ocean was in the distance, right? Maybe there's ocean and there's beaches and then there's buildings here in the foreground. And off in the distance, I said there would be like thunder clouds. So maybe it's darker back here. But in the foreground here, there's some bigger clouds that she's that are here in the foreground. I'm just sketching this stuff out, but I'm doing it in an excited way, a passionate way, right? I might do some close-ups of her face and go, what do I want with her face? I think I want her kind of frowned. Maybe I would want to look up, like, how fast would she have to go, or how high would she have to go for these tears to turn into ice, right? Like, that's kind of cool. That might be a really cool little story moment to like freeze the stuff on her face, right? I would look that up. That I'd be interested in, because that makes me excited about the drawing, right? And how all of her hair is pulling from her face. My point to this is, I'm trying to keep the excitement going, and I would jot idea after idea. This is only my first one. I'd probably go like through 10 of these and try to figure out like which one tells me the story the best. And over that excitement, I would get tighter and tighter with some of those details, but still draw with the same amount of passion, right? And that's what we're trying to get at today. I just want you to be aware that I think in general, it comes from ideas. When it's from imagination, you don't have a reference, so there's nothing to respond to. So you kind of have to make it up. And I think you have to build up your awe, right? Your excitement, your drive to create very story-driven, emotional, passionate images. If it's the figure, for me, of course, figure is really easy. It's like, damn, look at that. It's fantastic, right? I need to try and capture that. I love the challenge. I've always loved the challenge of, am I good enough, right? In my humility, am I good enough? Do I have the skill and the power, the passion to capture how amazing I perceive the model, right? Now, none of that's going to happen if you don't have that passion in the first place, of this amazement, this awe of the model themselves, right? So that's one of the first pieces to learn. And by the way, on drawingforest.com, we have all of our students write, right? Now, that doesn't sound very passionate. Like, oh, you want me to write? But we want you to write about things that will excite you to draw the model, just like I did with the imagination piece, right? So I did that with this. We're trying to teach the students to have a response that's exciting. So sometimes I'll say, draw the model as a metaphor. I like thinking of the models lots of times as like huge natural powers or disasters, like tornadoes and tidal waves, because they're massive. And I have an emotional response to that. I'm like, that really excites me, right? Thinking about a 50-foot tidal wave, let's say, the amount of power and weight in the water at that height, and me thinking about the model having that, right? And instilling that in themselves, or the strength of a tornado, right? That can rip houses out of the ground. And then I'm trying to say, you know what? I think the model has that energy because of the torque in their torso, you see? So I bring things in that are personal to me, that excite me. They don't have to be your metaphors, by the way, right? You might have something totally different, whatever it is, right? But that's what we're looking for you to do, okay? So to get this ball rolling, I'm not looking at the chat at the moment. How's that going, Swinley?
It's good. Someone said your voice sounds more badass now that you have a cold.
I'll try to stay sick for you guys all I can. So funny. I know I have a little bit of this like scratch in my my tone here. So maybe I'll start doing like the Bane voice thing, I'll change it up every week for you guys. Here, I'll get that Batman like, swear to me thing going. So when I look at this model, right, this is Trinda, I'm like, damn, that is so awesome. Look at the drive. I'm going to draw without even rhythm for a second. I'm just going to throw up here on the screen for you guys to show you how fast my brain thinks about this, right? I like the stiffness of this leg, like pushing this hip up, and the rest of his body's like falling this way. And this other leg's on an angle. So this all feels like it wants to fall forward, right? Because this is up, this is over, this is down. And there's a flow I could see from this pushing up to this S torso. I could see how he goes like this in here. It's an interesting thing going on there. And it's so peculiar to me. I find it curious, not super exciting, but curious, that his arms go like this and his hands finally come together like at the top of his head, right? That he's like this. So here's my like guttural version of this pose. I did that within seconds, but my ideas are in here, right? So now when I try to draw it with more of a passion of, let's say, the force of it, right? The energies of it, I already have a lot of these ideas. I might say, man, I really want that leg like pushing up into this, into that hip, right? Let me get this leg down on the ground. I like that foot feels like it's sliding. The thing to be aware of is what you're going to see, myself and Rotunjay and Swenley draw today is how we're drawing concepts, like the thing is we're drawing concepts, right? So the ideas are what show up. I'm not just like blindly drawing the model. I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, I like the weight here. See, I'm thinking about the weight of his chest, like pushing forward and falling down. I got a little bit of roundness here. I got this pushing up. I'm thinking about the strength of this leg, right? The tension of this leg, the weight of it, how much his body weight is falling down on this. You see what I mean? Right? So that's why our drawings look the way they look. And unbeknownst to students, really, when you're coming to drawingforce.com and you want to learn to draw from us, the typical response is students are like, yeah, I'm here because I want my drawings to be more fluid. That's great. But really what you're coming for, without you knowing, is you're really coming to learn to think how we think, right? To respond how we respond, to see how we see. The drawing is just the aftermath of all that, right? It's like the diagnosis of this whole thing. It's the symptoms. It's what's going on in our minds and our bodies that get our drawings to look this way, right? They look this way because of what I go through internally. How I internally respond to looking at Trinda is why this drawing gets to this place. You see, I can draw him and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be another measuring teacher. Right? It's like, I'm gonna show you guys how to measure. Okay, well, let's go over here to this photograph. Let's set up a grid over Trinda, right? And this is how I could teach drawing and say, well, this is over here. And I do some of this, believe it or not. I do think it's important to be aware of these locations, but I don't make that my sole purpose. And that's the difference. That's a big difference between what we try to teach you guys versus maybe some other art instruction. Okay. Because if I do this, I'm like, okay, foot's here, right? Let me get this. This is on an angle, which is important, but it goes from here to here. This goes from here to here. I want that like there. Let's see, this is like this. Maybe I can measure the negative. And again, I think negative spaces are important, but I'm not making that my purpose for drawing. Right? I could draw like this and say, let's just measure this all out and shape it out. You see? Very different. Look at what I'm going through, right? As I draw this, I've put my mind in a different place. Because my mind is in a different place, the drawing looks different. It's just going to look different, right? Because I'm thinking differently. That's how important it is that if you learn it from us or you learn from whatever instructor you learn from, you want to be aware of that teacher's thoughts. What do they think about when they draw? What's important to them? You see, this is a very different drawing, right? Like, let's look at this compared to this, right? Put this to the side here. You see? Notice how different these two look. They look different because I was different, right? I was different in each one of these, right? So my point to this whole conversation is, respond, react, be excited, be excited by the models. What's going on here, right? In this one, it's like, I want all that drive, right? And I'm sorry, I'm struggling myself a little bit today because I'm on a tablet. I'm not at my office. So I'm trying to be as sort of forceful as I can for you guys. Right? But I'm like, man, I really want that like push in the rib cage this way and the drive into his back, right? I'm thinking about how the thrusting is going that way. Listen to the words I'm talking about, the drive, the thrusting, the pushing, the bending, right? All these exciting words, right? If I use exciting words, it helps me bring excitement to my work. Right here, he's like crunching, 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 right? I want all that crunching in there, right? And I bring all of that. That thinking is what shows up here finally on the page. If I don't think like that, it's not going to happen, right? It doesn't happen by accident, right? Be aware. You have to think in the ways that we're presenting to you guys for your work to become forceful. That's just the bottom line, Any questions in the forum, Swenley?
Yeah, let me go and read it. Counterpast is asking, how does one find that line between passionate chaos and intellectual understanding? It seems like what you're saying is to follow what grabs your attention, but everything is so amazing, it's hard.
Yeah, so there's two questions in there. I would say one of them, the answer is hierarchy, right? When you said everything is amazing. So the intellectual side of the passion piece is priority is hierarchy. So as you know, on the website, we usually start with the torso, right? So be excited by the pose, right? And what's going on. We usually say go for the torso because it's one of the biggest masses of energy, in the model. The other question you had was, how do we like balance between this like passion and intelligence thing? And the unfortunate short answer but long truth here is practice, right? It's that graph I drew last time, right? It's like passion thinking, passion thinking, passion thinking, passion thinking, until finally, passion at the top, thinking at the bottoms here, until these two things kind of level off and you're increasing your skills passionately and intellectually, and you draw with passion and all the skill that you have. And even when you have all the skill, sometimes that passion drawing is still a mess, but there's something in there, right? There's something you got in that mess, this kernel of truth, right? This kernel of truth that you're after, that you're trying to get out of yourself, to get it on the page, right? Like your job is to get you out of you, right? Down onto the screen or the piece of paper, and work on it, right? And keep improving it and make it better, right? So I hope that answers your two questions. I would say the answers are, number one is hierarchy, and number two is practice, really. It's the practice, and this chart represents that, this equals time, of course, right? So over time, you will go back and forth through this until you're doing both things at one time, right? You'll draw with the skill you have and the passion you have at the same time. Any other questions?
Yeah, someone asked if you recommend starting drawing from the feet instead of the head.
What we always recommend on the site is starting with the torso. Today, I started with the foot on that one pose because I was like, wow, I really felt like that leg was pushing up into the hip. I would say that's a little bit more of an advanced thing to go after, to start there. We've already done the work for you in saying, what we've found over the years is start with the torso. If you look at this photograph of Trinda, and you look at his torso, right? If I darken this in, that's half of his body right there, right? In one big mass. So if you can get that down, you've taken care of 50% of like the challenge, right? And hopefully the passion as well that's going on in that body. And then the limbs are coming off of that, right? Like recognizing, how do the limbs hold up that body? What are their jobs? And being excited by their jobs, seeing the work and effort that goes into holding a pose like this. Which, by the way, on a total side note, one way of bringing some of this passion or empathy, of course, is you taking on the poses yourself. You really want to know what's going on with Trinda? Go do that, right? It's an amazing thing that as human beings, how alike we actually are, right? Like if you took this pose in exactly the same way that Trinda is, all the way down to his toes, right? Like standing that way, and you let your mind open up to what comes into your head when you take this pose, I'll bet you get pretty damn close to what Trinda was thinking when he took this pose, right? That's kind of the power of us being all of the same race, right? And I've done this in classes, a small tidbit of, I guess, trivia, like the cover of the Force books was a model that that was doing a scene in his imagination of a spy in the middle of the street shooting a gun around like this car spinning and trying to attack him. Like that's actually what that cover is. That's what the model is doing. And that was in a class where I had the students, what I would try to have the students do is draw the model and figure out, what do you think the model is going through? Who are they? Where are they? Right. And it was shocking as to how close you can get. So not only through the drawing, but I have to say, again, if you even perform it yourself, you can actually get into the headspace, the emotion of the model, right? What are they going through? Who are they? Where are they? What are they doing? What's going on around them? Even though they're just standing in a classroom, right? And that's why we draw the figure, by the way. That's why I don't teach from plaster casts and stuff. We learn from the model, from a real being, because we're real human beings. And you can actually bring your excitement to this through the empathy of, darn, look at that screen left leg. Think about how much work and effort is going on there. Why do I know that? I know that because if I did this, because I'm a human being, right? I know that that leg is under a lot of stress, right? I don't even have to go into all the mechanics of everything. I just know. I know looking at this is a lot of stress. I know the stretching going across his rib cage because of how much he's bending, right? I know there's tension in that arm. I can imagine what my deltoid would feel like locking my arm like that and holding that weight above my body, right? The challenge is, I think you guys would know this too. What I want to bring to you is be aware of that. Think about it, recognize it, be inspired by it. Can you draw that? That's what we're asking you to do. Can you draw those ideas? Can you draw those stresses and pulls and twists and turns and strains and energy and weight, and it's muscle and bone that are doing all this stuff, right? This twisting and turning and skin pulling over bones and muscle contorting, right? Like feeling these things out and being able to illustrate that, right? All right, I think I will close there. We didn't talk about who's going to go next. Why don't you go, Swenley, since Mrityunjay and I had time to talk last last session together. Let me give you
Sure.
power here. Let's see. Co-host. Yeah, so you should be able to take over now.
Yes. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So yeah, I would say what I could add is, and what Mike also brought up, I think last week, reference is important. Like, you want to pick reference that excites you to draw, and students often come with these like boring and static poses, and they're like, yeah, I want to challenge myself with drawing that, but the reference is not, you have to pick reference that fits the exercise. You're coming to us, like Mike said, to learn how we think, how we draw with energy and passion. So you want to pick reference that when you look at it, you're like, whoa, look at what the figure is doing, So I picked those references from today based on that. When I look at this pose, I was like, whoa, look at what the figure is doing. Look at how it's bending, how much his neck and head are stretching, like falling down, how he's like putting his his leg in between his arms. So these are ideas that excite me to draw this pose. And that's what I'm going to do, So I would say if you're drawing along, you want like a soft brush or soft graphite, something that allows you to do what we call soft touch, So I'm just going in here and starting with the torso, like Mike mentioned earlier, I'm going to use a big brush. I want to keep this big and simple. I don't want to get caught up in the details. So what I'm seeing right now, I'm drawing an idea of like falling down. This is falling down, and all the weight is being caught here at the top of the torso. I can see like the straightness on this side, and what's happening once I get here, this is going up and it's kind of like wrapping around and connecting to the farther side of the pelvis. I can even see like a pad from the farther side all the way into the closest thigh, and there's like the socket right here where the thigh pops out. And I'm using the force line, I'm using form, I'm using force shape as tools to help me draw these ideas. I don't draw for the sake of shape or for the sake of form. They are tools to help me express the exciting ideas that I see in this particular figure. So I see this, and let me get the other leg in there for balance sake. So this is like popping out from its own socket. Now you can see like the fronts of the knee. So right there, this is form. But I'm using it to draw an idea that I'm seeing in the figure. So this is thrusting towards us. There's a sense of speed and energy to that leg. You know, I'm not just like drawing a slow and dead line. No, I'm aware of the energy. Like there's a certain amount of power that the model is putting into thrusting this leg into this position. You know, and look at how the toes are like crunching here on the floor. And notice that I'm drawing very simple and abstract at this point. Now I can see like the center line here of the spine. This is all falling down. Now it's all falling down. I'm aware of the roundness here at the top of the torso. You know, I'm aware of the volume. You know, so slowly the drawing starts appearing. You know, and I would say the most exciting idea is to drive from the back into the face. You know, so again, I'm not copying contours, I'm not drawing shapes. I'm drawing this simple idea of energy flowing from one place to the next. You know, and how like energy is falling down from his back, and his face is like catching all that power that is coming from the back. You know, so this has weight, and this is going around to the back of the cranium. You know, and as I'm drawing, now the intellectual part comes in, you know, because now I'm like, look at where the head lands relative to the foot. I can see that in the reference, that is lower, you know, so either the torso might have to be a bit shorter, perhaps. You know, this might have to move up here a little bit, so the face is a bit higher. You know, I might have to make the leg longer. But this is my first pass, you know, so I'm just going to allow myself the freedom to just draw, and I'm going to analyze and correct those things later. Just want the whole thing to be on the page, you know. So his arms, again, there's a certain amount of energy and speed with which he's like throwing his arms back in this direction. You know, then he's like grabbing this other hands. You know, and I can see how the two arms work like a unit. You know, I can go this one path from this wrist all the way over the shoulders to the other shoulder. Now this arm is like popping out back here, and the hand is up here. Now, so again, keep it fast, loose, and forceful. All you want now is to get that idea down on the page. Now, so that's my first pass. So now I can say, okay, let's take what we have here, and we're going to do a second pass on top of it. So let me reduce the opacity to about 30%. So I'm going to give it another shot. I have like the big picture underneath. So now I can do another pass and see what would need to be fixed or corrected. Now, so let me start here at the back, because I can see now like this strong curve, you know, and then you have like this other curve right here. And again, I want the idea of energy like falling down, you know, and in the subject of proportions, like we're moving energy from point A to point B. So when I'm drawing these force lines, I'm aware of not only the speed and energy, but also the distance that I have to travel. Like, what's the distance from here to here? You know, that helps me with proportions. I think this would need to move up to match the proportions and placement that I see in the reference. So we go here, and I can see a very straight moment on this side. Then I go around. So this is a second pass. It's not a cleanup, so I'm still drawing loose and forcefully. I can see like this is wrapping around at the top of the pelvis. You can see a bit of the gluteus here, and then we have the sockets, and the leg is popping out. And again, I want to match the amount of energy and effort that the model is putting into like thrusting this knee forward. Now, this is a contact point with the ground, so you can darken the line there to show the weight on that knee. Now I'm drawing through and I'm paying a bit more attention to the length of the leg. So we go from here to here. I can see the heel popping out back here. This is very round. Now here I can get some anatomy ideas. I can see like the volume here, and I know there is a sartorius muscle here. And the inner thigh would be hanging a little bit because of gravity pulling it down. Okay, so let's work on this again. And notice that I'm still drawing very abstract and very loose. Now, I often see students get to the head and neck, and then they start copying the shapes, and the whole thing stiffens up. So I want this abstract rhythm connecting the spine and the face. And the neck cylinder has to be built on that path. Now I can see this curve, and I know that the neck attaches in its socket at the top of the rib cage. I can see like the wrinkling of the skin back there. So this all pushing out. We see a bit of the top of his head. So I'm just using wrapping, and I can draw like the center line here. And the nose is sticking out here. But the main idea is there. I have the rhythms and the fluidity and energy. So now then I can use that as a blueprint to build the forms and shapes on top. So here I can see how he's pulling his shoulder back. So I'm drawing the drive of energy from the pit of the neck, and the deltoid is all the way back here. So I want this pull to be very evident in my drawing. Okay, it's good. Now that I have that, I can think about the anatomy. I know that there is a clavicle in here which connects to the center of the deltoids. Then you have the acromion process, and you have the shoulder blades, which we see back here. And because he's pulling his arm towards the spine, you can see the forms being compressed here at the back. So that's coming along. Put the hand in here. I want to go and draw the other arm.
2 more minutes, Swinley.
Yes. So we have this arm here. He's grabbing the other hand. This is how I would continue working on the drawing. So each pass I draw with the same amount of energy and passion, and like the cleanup kind of starts happening naturally, because the ideas become clearer and clearer, and the strokes become more efficient, as I do multiple passes and like solve like all the pieces of the puzzle in the drawing. And in the end, you have to just go for it. Like it's easy to sit here and think, oh, a lot of people are watching, and I'm a teacher, so I'm expected to do a good drawing. So what if I mess up? Like it's easy to have those thoughts, and those can distract you from actually doing a good drawing, and having like an exciting experience in drawing the figure, so you just have to silence those thoughts by focusing on the excitement, of drawing the figure instead of the fear of messing up. All right, I'm going to stop here so Mitunjay gets enough time to draw as well. So yeah, hopefully this was insightful for you guys.
Thank you, Swenley. One thing I want you all to be aware of is like Swenley picked this image, and some of you might think, I'm not interested in drawing that. Oh my God, it's too difficult for me to draw. But for Swenley specifically, it's like, oh, this is really interesting. It's challenging. It's exciting to me. I want to draw it. I want to take it on, right? That's going to be different for every one of you, based on what your interests are. Like I was thinking, some people might want to draw, like fairies. I was thinking of like Tinkerbell. Like, well, Tinkerbell isn't extremely like exciting in a forceful way. It's more of like a ballet like way. So that's like a different kind of thing. And I could get excited by that, but that's different than, I don't know, like a giant bear running through the woods or something. In fact, going back to Glenn Keane, that's why, Glenn he went from a bear, doing a bear and Fox and the Hound, right? And then was trying to convince the people at Disney that he would be the lead for Ariel, right? And everyone's like, well, what are you talking about? You've always drawn like big bad guys, right? You did the bear, you did Ratigan, it's always like big burly characters, right? So it made sense for Beast. That makes total sense because we already knew he was good at that, right? But then he was going to do Ariel. It's like you're going to do this little mermaid, right? Literally little skinny little girl mermaid, right? And still pull that off. And, and it's his passion for the subject. That's what you have to go find, right? It's like, all right, I'm Glenn Keane. How do I get excited about drawing the Little Mermaid? Where can I find the passion in that and what her problems are? What is she about, right? And how she swims and acts and performs and sings, right? And try to bring all that out. And you can see that when she is singing, like how passionate she is. Remember, there is no she, there's Glenn and there's a voiceover actress, right? So he's having to like find that with the voiceover actress, right? To create a visual. So anyway, off to Mrityunjay.
Mike, I'm gonna share. All right, can you see?
Yes.
All right, guys. So I also want you to watch my hands today, so you can also, see like how my hands are flowing. It's gonna be really exciting. So you can see a little tab like my camera icon on top there. Sorry, Tony, I stole your image, but that makes sense as well. Right, so you can see my hand there as well, a little bit, on the camera side, and right there is image. Okay. So passion, right? So I'm standing right now. Okay, just for you cannot see me like standing, but here's my drafting table. I'm kind of standing here. One of the cool things about the passion side for me, it's like the curiousness, and it's like, oh my God, look at this model. How is he doing that? And I really want to do it. It's like that curiousness that kind of pops in my mind, and I can guarantee you, once you have like that kind of the curiousness, going over, it's gonna sculpt away like all the fear, that you have related to drawing. So I'm seeing in the chat, some people are like, oh my God, this is like so tough for me. Uh, why it is tough, right? Just go for it. Like you're gonna not lose anything. If it fails, it fails, right? So I'm drawing this image, at first time, and it's okay if I fail. So uh, let's go. So I'm standing right now. I'm just like, I like to be a little bit more physical with my artwork. Being physical means I just want to like channel my like whole body, into the drawing right now. Okay, and that's gonna be it. And so we'll start to draw it. I'm not gonna worry about like too much of intellectual side of things and stuff. Let's go. So my first the first exciting moment, for me is like this. It's like really throwing it to the chest, like, and look like how it's going to the neck, right there. There we go. That's the first exciting part, for me in this figure. Like really pushing out the chest and look like all the force is like going into the head into the face right there. I see it's like how it's like hitting. I see my like hands, like my hands are like moving, and that camera. This is the way I'm thinking right now. Okay? Like all the passion stuff. And again, I'm being curious about it. It's like, oh my God, how he's doing that. It's like, oh my God, all the force and right there, boom, into right there. I usually use these arrows as well, just because, yeah, it makes sense. We are drawing energy. So that kind of makes sense. Now, for example, here's like more of this for me. It's like all the shoulder. Imagine the stress in this area, right? In this area. Imagine the stress right there. So exciting. I can guarantee, like, if I were in the class and the model does this, I'd be running off. I was like, oh my God, I want to capture all the angles of this model. It's like really, really exciting. Look how he's like pushing into there, like really pushing into the scapula and like all the muscles right here. Okay. I'm not worrying about like technical stuff at this point. It's more like doodling for me. It's like I just want to take the fun of it. Here's the elbow side right there. See like all the, I'm still not losing my main idea, which is like going into the face and like hitting into this. See what I'm doing right there? So I'm like hitting in there. This is the face. See like the nose right there? Right there. Now, once I got that, I can like go into this stuff. Like here's the leg coming out. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Kind of drew over the image. It's okay. Right. So now it's about the leg. Okay. So once I think about the body, like the whole force is going in here. Now I can think about the body is like how it's hitting into this. Okay. One thing you have to be really, really aware of that you're drawing force. Okay. If you don't remember it, write it and put it on your wall. Okay. You have to remember it that these are energies. Okay. This is not the contour of the body. So now we can go wild with it. I can say, oh, here's all the energy coming, hitting into that knee right there. Okay. And then my intellectual side is a little bit working right now. So I'm thinking a little bit about the template and stuff. And I can use, whatever I've learned over these years. Okay. It's like some forms and some shapes, some sort of things. But it's really backed up by this idea of this curiousness. So this. Okay. Now it's got the other leg. Okay. It's like really coming off from here. It's like going this, and it's backed up by the other hand, like that. So now I can go ahead and really clean this up if I want. I want to connect it just like Swendy did. It's really, really awesome. I want to like make this a little bit more clear. Like, oh, this is like the body. That right. So yeah, and do something like this, and you really feel these like energies out. Look at this again. I'm drawing the arrows. It's like going into the face and the neck right there. Once I got that, I can clean it up. Now it's not going to be as exciting, but I enjoyed this piece, right? I enjoyed this like piece a lot. Like once you're like getting into cleanup, that's not going to be as exciting. It's never for me, so I never do that. But yeah, there we go. All right, we got just one more really quick example here. It's got this. All right, I can see the image. All right, so every time the idea is not going to stay to the speed only, okay? Excitement could be anything, right? That passionate thing could be anything. So for example, in this one, it's got this like swirling, see like my hand moving across the screen. It's like, oh, just like swirling across, like happening between these two ideas. And the ideas that I'm talking about for you guys is like this. Like, oh my God, just like the gracefulness. For now, my idea is gracefulness. It's not about like speed anymore. Okay? Like, oh, I really have to got this finesse, in this figure. Obviously, physics is working here, and she's like kind of like leaning over this side. So she's got this like really strong pole-like hand, and obviously without that, she's gonna fall. Okay, so I like draw that first. I have to draw that first, obviously, to make the figure balance, and so there goes. Here, this side, my intellectual brain is working. It's like, okay, you got to balance it out, and then again, just like jump to the passionate side and really think about this like torso, like down there. Once I got this, I got that. It's like the rib cage and I'm poking out a little bit this way. Okay, so see, I'm getting like all of that, like going in here, like going in here. That's really my main idea. I really want to enjoy it. It's like an amusement park ride. Okay, so you gotta like go to an amusement park and you really like that ride. You will want to go over that again. Okay, so here's my ride. Okay, from here, let's name them like from first to second. I want to go over that again and again. So then I'm saying, okay, here I'm going that over again and again. I really like how this is throwing me from here to here. Okay. And today is not about like drawing the whole figure. So I'm really like I really want you to focus on the part that I'm liking about this. Like that. Like really pushing in here, like super hard. You see how my like voice is changing. Okay, I'm saying, oh my god, it's like really pushing in there. That's super hard. And then I can just like work on the other stuff if I want. It's like, okay, here's. I also like this arm, by the way. It's like upper arm that I'm drawing right now. It's like how much is like coming out of the camera. It's like that in the camera. Then it's got this like just looking down a little bit. And it's a little bit right to the side. That's something like that. So anyway, again, as I said, it's not about like drawing the whole figure for today, but what do I told you is like what I'm like really mostly like interested in into this figure, and that's like really this like idea of pushing like this way and coming out this way, yeah, and so on and so on. Okay, so yeah, we are about to close, and I hope you enjoyed my passionate journey like over these two figure drawings, and hope you got some finesse out of your drawings from now. All right, guys, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mrityunjay. Yeah, I loved seeing, I think the idea of seeing your hands is a great idea. Like for you guys to just see us drawing always digitally and just see the stuff showing up doesn't mean you get to see how we physically are also representing our excitement. In fact, hopefully in the months to come, I'll finally have a setup myself at the house where I'll be able to shoot, because my hands also, I think it's important that you guys could see the physicality that we go through, So that's it for this week. We will see you next Friday, right? So try to go out there, try to have ideas that you are excited by, right? That drive you to be passionate about your drawing. If you're not, then you're not in the right head or heart space yet, right? You haven't discovered what it is that's going to make you passionate about your drawing. So that's where the work is, not in the drawing, but even in just finding the right idea, the right reference, the right thing to respond to, the right song, the right voice, the right word, the right image, whatever it might be, right? But that's what you want to go discover. Go find out what drives your passion enough to drive you through to courage, and courage conquering over any kind of fear of drawing itself, right? Again, if you love what we're talking about here, which I hope you do, then please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell if you want to get notifications. There'll be a lot more of this type of conversation coming up in the months to come, I'm sure. And stay safe, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thank you again, Mrityunjay and Swenley, for all your awesome conversation and presentation. And I'll see everyone in 7 days. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sure, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.